Right.
How are you
It's
doing?
is this the publishing one or just working on our book?
It's both. We start out with Q&A and then we work on our book together. I'm just setting everything up here. Apologize. Morning, Andy. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Well, we'll probably have some other people pop on here in a minute, but we can get started with you, Andy, and you, Jackie. Jackie, how are things going with your book project? Update us.
It's been actually, I've got the 3 books. The one I just, I thought I'd work on today. This is a little book called The 8 Worlds of Wonder. And I think it's moving forward. I finally wrote the copy. I'm just working on the illustration. But the big book is The Currency of Caring book. And I wrote a chapter about geotourism using the example of the Northeast Kingdom. And then my editor did a beautiful job editing it. And then I contacted the woman that I'm highlighting in it, and she's not happy. And so I'm like, oh shit, how did I get it that wrong? And so I'm waiting to talk to her. I don't know what I had wrong. I mean, it's been 12 years, so. But anyway, that's a real stumbling block. I want to make sure that I don't miss. I need to have the real story of the transformation of the Northeast Kingdom using these techniques. And so I don't know. Anyway, I didn't see that coming.
She didn't give you any clue as to what
No, she hasn't. She just said it's misrepresenting the state and my role. And I thought, what? I mean, it's such a positive, wonderful story of how they were looking to rebrand the Northeast Kingdom. And then National Geographic came in and showed them this concept, and they adopted it. And I went back, I met with her, she told me everything, I wrote it down, I used it, she never pushed back, and that's all I put in the book. And I don't know what could have changed.
You know, and Andy can probably relate to this because he's in marketing, but I've worked with hundreds of marketing clients over the years, and I found that sometimes you can get 99% of something right, and the client latches onto that 1%, the tiny thing, and they make a big fuss over it. And once they explain it, you realize, oh, I can fix that in about 5 minutes. And then they're fine. But sometimes they make a big deal about a really tiny thing. So hopefully it's something small like that, where she just says, well, you said this here. And you're like, oh, well, sorry, I'll change that. And then she's like, okay, the rest of it's fine.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Maybe it is that. As a matter of fact, you just gave me an idea. I should go look and see if she made notes in the margins. I guess she said I got her title wrong. And I go, okay, I mean, that's easy.
Yep. This happens a lot in marketing with stock photography, where you choose a photo for a website or a brochure, and the client comes in and says, this is all wrong. I hate everything. This is terrible. You messed it up. And then you're like, well, what's wrong? I don't like this person in this photo. It's like, oh, well, here's another photo that's totally different. Oh yeah, that one's fine. Okay, it's all good. And you're just like, all right, not a big deal, but happy to accommodate.
Okay, I see. I'm looking at her notes. You're absolutely right. It's just little stuff. I do feel better now. I was in a panic. She said, like, I had to quit giving notes. It wasn't a statewide initiative. It was just the Northeast Kingdom. I knew it was only the Northeast Kingdom. I don't know. Maybe my editor got it wrong. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. You're right. It was never a statewide initiative. Okay. That doesn't even matter.
And maybe you can fix those things and then just resend it to her and say, hey, I may have found the things that were wrong with it. Here's an updated version. And maybe that fixes it all.
Yes. Yes, I think you're right.
Well, is there
Yep,
any,
okay, you're right. I'm gonna fix these few things. I didn't even look to see. I forgot that Google Docs has the comment option, and I was just like, please call me, let's talk about it, because she said there were so many things she couldn't change, but they are little things. Yeah, so that was a little panic that I started, I got in a panic and I thought, oh my God, I'm no good. I can't do this.
yeah, that's how it is when you care about your work.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Was there anything else going on with the book that we can talk about?
No, that was the big thing. I'm just working away at the chapters, but it really did show me how important it is when I'm talking about experiences with other people, which so much of the book is, that I go back and check with them. It's fun to check with them. I mean, I want to, but this is the first time that that's happened. The other ones hasn't been that problem. So
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you get on with that.
yeah, and I'm
Andy,
gonna work on my little book. Maybe that's easier. It doesn't involve anyone. It's more poetic.
yeah. Let's move on to Andy. Andy, how are things going with you? Andy and I just met, by the way, recently. So Andy is new here, but tell us how things are going with you.
Yeah, they're going good. We're staying busy. As Josh mentioned, I have a marketing agency as well. And so what I'm in the midst of doing is I've already written my book, but I want to do a second edition, and I'm not nearly as motivated with my book the second time to position myself in a certain way. I totally want to position it a completely different way. In fact, I was thinking about it for quite a while, and I think a lot of my book was therapy for me.
I think that's a lot of what this is. Yeah.
And so this last week I've been doing a lot of introspection, and I'm like, okay, it's not about me. It's about the message and what the message can do to help others, if that makes sense.
But I think how that works is that people have to see themselves in that story. And so if it is your story, then they're able to understand it from your perspective, because they can kind of ride side saddle as you tell it. So is your first book published? It's already out there?
Yeah, it's already, yeah, in fact, it's right here.
So it's already got good stop selling.
Yeah, I think I've sold 10 copies and 3 people have read it. So I'm feeling pretty successful. In a garage full of them too, right?
So why are you doing it? What's the second edition?
What is it? Well, it's the same book. I'm just retitling it and repositioning it.
Yeah, Andy and I had a call a few days ago and talked about the book and his audience and the message he wants to get to them. And we talked about different titles and different strategies for doing that. It's kind of an interesting case study, and it's interesting how you brought up how a book's therapy, Andy.
Yeah.
Often when we do, right, a lot of authors use books as therapy.
Yeah.
And a lot of authors publish books that started out as therapy, and some of those books go on to do really well. There's a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance that was written in, I think, the 70s.
Great book.
Great book. Changed my life. I read it in high school. My sister gave it to me. I read it 4 or 5 times now, and it's a fantastic book, but it was a therapy project given to the guy by his psychologist or therapist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he said, you need to go write your book and process all this. And so he wrote this book, and it became this huge bestseller. So
Wow.
there's nothing wrong with writing a book for therapy. Sometimes, however, we write a book for therapy and really the book is only for us and it doesn't match anybody else out there. Sometimes it matches a lot of people out there, like the Zen book.
Yeah.
But even if it's just for our therapy and we hope that it can be helpful for other people, what I would do in that method or in that situation is I'd take the book, write it for myself as therapy, as a first draft, and then you make a copy of that first draft and you say, okay, now I'm going to sit down with my first draft and I'm going to really think about somebody else and how this book might apply to them. I still have the copy that was therapy for me, but now I'm thinking entirely about my audience and what they're going to get out of it. And I don't have to feel sensitive about changing things because I've still got that first draft that was written for me. I did this with a memoir recently where I wrote it first for myself. And then I said, well, now I'm going to think about it. It's a memoir about adopting one of my daughters. And so I wrote it for myself first. And then second, I thought, well, I'm going to write this for my family, for my daughter, for my other kids, my family to read. And so I thought about it that way. And then I thought about, if I were redoing this for a mainstream audience, how would I change this book? But every time along the way, I'm making a copy of it so that if I look at it for a mainstream audience and I say, you know what, I included all this background and context, and a mainstream audience isn't going to care about that. My family will, but a mainstream audience won't. I can chop that out of the version for the mainstream audience, but I've still got the copy for my family that includes everything. It's kind of like doing a director's cut of a movie. The mistake some people make is that they start writing their book in a Word doc, and then when they go to do their second draft, they revise that copy and they don't save a copy of the first draft. You should always be saving copies so that you're not afraid. It helps you to let go of things, to know that there's another copy of it somewhere. Because there might be part of that book that's very special.
Yeah.
There might be part of that book that's very special and personal to you, and you feel like, well, I don't want to delete this, but that might keep you from writing the right book. And so making copies and backups is a great way to let go of parts of that and say, hey, I'm not destroying it. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm just making a copy, and this copy is for somebody else. Anyway, I found that helpful for me.
That's a brilliant point. It's like those emails that you just have to release all the emotion, but you don't send them. And then you think, well, what's really helpful here? And you pull that out.
Yeah. The letter that you never send.
So what much of my audience, and I think we started talking a little bit about this prior, but it's very much wrapped into my business. We're doing good as a marketing agency. We're just not doing as good as we want to do. About 3 years ago, just prior to COVID, I realigned things to go very similar. I don't know if you're familiar with Marketing 360. They're out of Colorado.
I'm not. I don't think I am.
They have about 20,000 customers.
Okay.
That pay, yeah. Okay. And they pay on average, I think it was $597 a month. Okay. Per customer. And that's who we are. But the problem is well, that's our model, but we don't have 20,000 customers. We want to get there to where we have 20,000 customers, but or it doesn't even be 20,000. I mean, I'd be perfectly happy with like 4,000, right? I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's
they do 100 million a year. And so we want to grow to that kind of level, or at least get onto that trajectory. But the problem that we have right now is, man, hiring salespeople is just the biggest problem. And so what we've concluded is that if our best referrals, our best clients that we have right now have come through business coaches,
right?
Somebody that's gone out there, worked in the corporate world and has a buyout, they're in their 50s. And we just have so many customers, good ones, that come through business coaches. And so I'm actually starting an actual coaching company. I know so many of these business coaches that are at least in the Houston area, all the franchises that these guys have bought into, they're all disgruntled. And I figure if I just start a coaching company with a lot of tools online, and I'm not even going to charge them for it, and I'll build you some stuff, they will naturally refer. So I'm using my book as a means to an end. The real audience is going to be the business coaches, but I'm going to be referring to their customer within the book. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like a toolkit for your staff. And then from there out, you're putting all your expertise your strategies in the book, and then your business coaches will be working some of those, and then that will become a reference guide for the customer.
Well, really for the business coach to read.
The business coach.
And them to buy in, and then them to tell their customer, hey, if you want your marketing done correctly, these are the guys that
Well, that's what I guess I meant. You put the strategies in the book, the business coach uses it, and then the customer goes, where'd you get that? Oh, here it is in a box, toolbox.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah.
I think that's good. By the way, when I started doing book coaching, I went out and I tried to read tons of business coaching books just on the craft of business coaching. Have you read The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin?
No, let me pull it up.
It's such a good book. I don't think it's necessarily, well, we talk about a hero book in this masterclass, and the idea that there might be a book out there that's similar to the book that you want to write, and it might be similar in structure, it might be similar in tone, it might be similar in content, but it's good to have something that you can kind of look to as a resource when you have questions about your own book to see how somebody else did it.
Yeah.
And the Prosperous Coach, he's a coach, and he doesn't necessarily coach coaches, although he does. He coaches all sorts of high performance type people, executives and such. But he wrote this book, The Prosperous Coach, and I'm sure he attracts lots of coaches with it. But it's the best book I've ever read on the business of being a coach.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about coaching, but it's about writing, or it's about that business of being a coach. It's about the marketing side. It's about, and it's interesting. He sells the book for $75. Like, who else sells a book for $75 unless it's a textbook or something?
Right.
So it's really expensive. And you go on Amazon, you're like, this has got to be a mistake or something. There's something wrong. But no, he purposely sets the price at $75. But it is such a good book. I think you'd be interested in reading it regardless. I don't know if it's in any way similar to the book what you want to do with your book, but it might be similar in some ways, at least.
The one is, so with the book being a means to an end, and very similar, I like what Miller's doing with StoryBrand, is he's certifying marketing agencies. Where I want to go is I want to certify business coaches so that they have our processes and our systems, and then they implement our methodology.
Who else is doing that?
Who else?
Yeah, who else certifies business coaches?
There's a lot. Well, Maxwell does a lot of stuff, but I mean, that's not for marketing. But the thing that's interesting with these business coaches, they don't sign any non-competes that they can't go out there and get another methodology and add it to their, box of tools, so to speak. And so there's a lot of stuff. I mean, Brian Tracy, it's just unlimited. Everybody's got, quote unquote, a methodology. And for us, and my piece is, most of the businesses that we work with are probably, $2 million and below in revenue, right?
Small businesses.
Yeah, small business, right? And so, and that's why I get to a price point of like, ours is a little higher. I think we average about $800 per client per month, but we could even go a lot lower. I mean, I have a product that we offer at $150 a month, and there's value to it. We're not just taking somebody's $150 and we meet with them, but that's the model that we've put together, and small business coaches meet with small businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any need to reinvent the wheel here. I mean, there's an established way of doing this. I'm familiar with Maxwell. I'm familiar with, what's the other one you mentioned?
Brian Tracy.
Brian Tracy. Yes, I've read a bunch of Brian Tracy's books, so I'm very familiar with them. They've got something that works, and I don't think there's any need to stray too far from what they've done.
No.
Brian Tracy obviously has written like 20 books, 30 books or something. Same with John Maxwell. I mean, he's written a ton of books.
Yeah. I've got a client that's authored with Brian Tracy.
Yep.
His authoring process is just, you get to write a chapter and he publishes a book and he charges you $5,000 for a chapter.
Yep. Yeah. So, which is a great way to build your credibility.
Right. Yep.
And there are a lot of people out there who have achieved the fame already, and they're more than happy to put their name on a book with you as long as you write a decent book, because it just helps them get their name out there that much more. It's a great way to collaborate. But yeah, I mean, I would be looking at Brian Tracy and Maxwell and saying, okay, what kind of books did they write that specifically attract coaches? And how could I write similar books, but using my methodology? And I wouldn't focus on trying to pack it all into one book. I would think of this as a series of books, the same way that they've done it, because each of those books, I mean, Brian Tracy, he's got his book on speaking and his book on Eat the Frog, productivity, and
Right.
he's got, each of his books has a different focus, and they're very short, quick, easy reads. And I would look at that same type of format of saying, I don't need to put it all in one book. How can I write a book that book becomes valuable for a particular coach with a certain problem and becomes the book that coaches turn to when they need to solve one of the problems that they have? And then I'll write another book to address another problem that coaches have. And then I'll write another and another and another.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. It is. Thinking about renaming the book Rocket Marketing
Mm-hmm.
and getting into some of the imagery of, what a rocket does and how difficult it is to, exit the Earth's, gravity. But once you're, all that effort, but then once you get to that point, then where do you want to go?
95% of the fuel on a rocket is used just to get the
Right.
first few miles up.
That's right.
Well, the point of marketing is moving messages. So if you're moving them at a speed of a rocket.
Yeah. If you just keep pushing, that thing can get going really fast.
I think it might be the part of the reason too that man charges $75 for his book. He is by doing that eliminating certain people from being able to buy it.
Right. Only people who are serious about reading the book are going to buy it.
And people who will treat his information respectfully.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, Nikki, do you have anything that you want to share with us?
Sure. There I am. Sorry, and of course my cat showed up right as I was going on camera.
I love it.
So I am a first-time author, and so I've been on the back end with the marketing piece. And I responded to your email where you asked me what you could do to help with the launch. And I sent a response where I was like, I don't know enough to know what to ask. But what I'm doing, I have a launch date of 11/4 for my debut novel. But then I also have a novella that's set in the same universe as part of an anthology that's being released in October. I'll get the rights back to that on November. And the bright idea I had this morning was, okay, when you get the rights back, why don't you make that your reader magnet? Because it's a complete story. It's set in the same universe, and use that for newsletter signups, because I'm getting nowhere with, I have a very small readership, which I take very good care of. I pre-sold a few books, and I'm like, yay, I hit the lottery. 12 people believed in me. I just started doing interviews, and I had my first one. I was a nervous wreck. It went great. Have others coming up, and then I was invited to do like be a featured speaker with my writing community that's growing. It's mushrooming out of control, and that's great. I'm experienced with the public speaking. It will never be as hard as the first time, and I feel like I've got a good handle on like my message, my branding, where I'm coming from, and all of that. It's just honestly the energy of knowing where to put the requests, like pitching for podcasts and trying to be strategic about it, because I have a day job in education and it's about to be off the rails crazy with the beginning of the school year. I always say that's my month of Black Fridays, and trying to do as much ahead of time as possible. And so, I'm also getting reviews. The reviews are really good. I'm getting 5-star reviews with good substantive feedback. So it's just sort of that slow and steady. I know I'm not going to make any money on the first book. It's really going to be on the backlist. But I thought that was genius with using the anthology piece for the reader magnet, because I have not had time I've been so busy with the marketing, I haven't had creative time. And it's starting to stress me out a little bit, because it's the first book that publishes in November is the first in a series. And I have the second one in the series slated to release on January 2nd. And it's in the editing phase, but I can't seem to concentrate on it because marketing is always in the background. So that's what's going on. Happy to take any advice or thoughts anyone has.
Well, let me give you some words of encouragement. You said you've got 12 people who bought the book.
Yes.
That's great. If you can get one person who loves your book, that's a great sign, because anybody who loves your book, there are 50,000 more people just like them out there. It's just a matter of finding them. And it's more important that somebody exists that likes your book than that you have all of them in your quiver or ready to email to. So focus on that one person who really loves your book, and try to figure out that person and why they love your book so much and why it's so helpful for them, because that's going to help a lot with the marketing if you can focus on the one. And one of my case studies that I love about starting from small beginnings is Darren Rouse. He runs a website called ProBlogger.net. It's like the website for blogging, for learning how to be a professional blogger. He started out with 5 people on his email list. Now he has 750,000, but it started out with 5. And he said 2 of those people were his mom. So you can start great things from a small start if you're producing good content, and if you really tap into a certain audience that loves that content. When something doesn't take off, it does mean that we need to go back and review the content and make sure that's actually good. I've been studying YouTube lately. Video is my Achilles heel. It's hard for me to do video. It's easy for me to talk to people like this. It's hard for me to do like scripted video, like record myself and put up a video on YouTube. So I've been studying that lately. And there's this guy, Daryl Eves. He wrote a book called The YouTube Formula. He's been an advisor to Mr. Beast and all these huge YouTube stars. And somebody asked him, what's the #1 mistake that content creators make on YouTube? And he said it's that they think their content is good when it's not. And the way that we gauge that is the response from the audience. We're really not very good at determining whether our own content is good or not. We have to go to the audience and figure that out. And our audience can't be our mom, because our mom's going to tell us it's fantastic. They're just impressed that we wrote a book at all. We really need to find somebody who's blunt, but is the ideal audience, the person we're really trying to reach. And if you can figure that out, one of those people, and write a book that they are willing to honestly say, yes, this is really good and this is why it's good, then you've tapped into something. And then it's just a matter of finding the other people. And the #1 marketing that you're going to do is going to be, it's not going to be the marketing you do. It's going to be the marketing other people do through word of mouth. Any book out there that has sold 1 million copies, it's not PR, it's not marketing, with the exception of like Prince Harry's book or something. But any other book that has sold 1 million copies, it's because of word of mouth. And PR and marketing might help it get started, but what helps it to keep going is always going to be word of mouth. It's me, like I just did right now, telling Andy, hey, you should go read The Prosperous Coach. I read that book 6 years ago, but I'm still recommending it to people because it was that good of a book. It was really great content. And same with Andy brought up StoryBrand. I've probably got 100 people who have bought StoryBrand because of me, because I've recommended it so much. That's the type of stuff that really makes a book fly off the shelves. But if you can get one person who loves your book, you know that all you need to do is get 5 more and they'll tell a friend, and then you've got 10 and they'll tell friends, and then you've got 20. That's what it takes to go viral. PR doesn't make you go viral. Marketing doesn't make you go viral. Only word of mouth makes you go viral. And that means just writing a really good, useful book.
I think I've done that, and it's very niche specific.
What is your
I've
book,
used-
by the way? Is this on Amazon already?
It is. It's called International Incident. It is a steamy contemporary romance, and I specialize in Black on Black romance because there was a dearth of good choices. And so I tapped into a very specific market, and with getting reviews, getting accepted to be a book club recommendation for reviewers, folks that, just like you said, get in front of their audience, then I'll be able to do even better. So it's sort of a patience game. And since I still have my day job, I have a very different relationship with this book than if I quit my job and needed to, do health insurance for the family. So I don't want to say I'm being cavalier or casual about it, but that stress is off of me. I don't have a budget, but I have time. And I started like doing things with getting my logo and my website up well before I started trying to grow social media presence and things like that. So trying to learn from others' mistakes and follow the promote then publish. So that's where I'm going. So it sounds like just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, also, so I'm looking at your book right now. So this is romance and this is a series, right? And you're probably going to write a bunch more. I mean,
Yes.
maybe not all as part of the series, but this is a type of thing that people tend to write like 10 or 20 books. Is that kind of your plan?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a niece who does this, and she's written a ton of romance books, and she makes a living from it. She's doing pretty well. I have another friend he doesn't do romance books. He does like kids educational books, but all the people I know who have series of books where they've written 10 or 20 books, all of them without fail will say, I didn't really hit success until the 4th or 5th book. That's what they all say. And then they'll say, once I hit number 4, all of a sudden people started really buying number 1. But somehow I had to have 4 books out there before people even really started picking up on number 1. So I'd also just offer that as words of encouragement too, that it might not be book 1 or 2 or 3 that takes off. It might be number 4 that all of a sudden the whole series takes off at that point. I've seen it over and over again.
Okay. All right. I'll stay encouraged then. Thank you.
But yeah, keep it up. I see that you've just got the Kindle version of this. Is that kind of the plan too? Is you're just doing the Kindle versions of these?
It's being formatted for paperback now.
Okay.
And so I'll do print on demand. I didn't want to have to worry about trying to ship anything. So just hit the easy button for once in your life.
Yeah, I know a lot of authors, especially in the romance and fiction areas, are doing like Kindle only books, and they're having big success with that. So I was just curious what your strategy was, but yeah. Well, great. Do you have any other questions, Nikki? Anything else we can help out with? By the way, I saw your email and I saw that I didn't respond to it, so I'll respond to that too. But
thank you. No, that's no, I think that was it. Just hearing from somebody with more experience that, okay, yes, you've got the right idea. Keep doing that is helpful.
yes, it is helpful sometimes. Sometimes we're in the middle of stuff and we're like, I just need somebody to tell me that I'm doing this the right way so that I can keep doing it. It looks to me like you're doing it the right way. So keep on going. Let's see what happens. All right, Virginia, how have you been? I think we missed you the last week or two.
Yeah, I think it was just last week. Oh, and then I had an appointment before, so it was 2. At any rate, I wanted to know if it's a good idea to send books out to influencers, in the fields that you think will want it.
For sure. That's a great marketing tactic. So I work primarily with business book authors. And so I always tell my clients, find 50 journalists who write about the stuff that's in your book and send them a free copy. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to beg them for an article. You just send them the book. If they like it, they'll write about it.
That's even better than just, I had other key influences, but I didn't think about journalists that write about your book. That's even better.
Yeah. So if you can budget for it, then yeah, I would send it out to everybody I could who might be able to recommend it, because this goes back to the word of mouth factor. Word of mouth is what really sells the book. And if you can get it in the hands of people who have large audiences, then when they talk about it, then it can really help it get started. And there are all sorts of influencers. There's journalists, but there's online influencers. There are people on YouTube who talk about your topic. There are people who lead organizations, conferences. So there are all sorts of people, and it's great to make a big list of all those people who recommend your type of book or who speak to your audience and could recommend your book to the right people, and send out a bunch of books to those people. It's very cheap marketing, relatively speaking.
What was the first one when you said speak to your audience? Before that, you had another.
So journalists, conferences, associations.
No. It was, I wrote those down. People who speak to your audience, and before that, you said somebody else. I don't know who it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, I have.
Yeah, people who have the same audience as you, or people who influence the same audience you have. That's who you want to be talking to.
Same audience. Okay, thank you. I'm still working on my outline, so I don't really have much to add today, but I've learned a lot from what people have already shared.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Well, let's see. Well, we've got time for more questions. So anybody else have any other questions or things coming up for them? Stuff that's getting you stuck on your book projects? Jackie, you've got 3 books. You must have more questions. You're on mute though.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so one of the books is a children's book that is based on a song that came to me walking the earth called The Nature in Me. And people suggested I turn it into a children's book. So I think it's a good idea, but because it's a song, I was wondering, is there a technology that could make it like a book with the words, but then you could push something and it could have music to it? I'm trying to figure out how to do, I'd like to incorporate the song in the book, or would I just put a link to something online?
You could certainly do that. There are books that way. I have 0 experience with that type of book, so I wouldn't know where to point you in terms of production for that type of book. Other than to say, you could always reach out to an author who's done that type of book and ask them how they put it together.
Good point. I should find something like it. Yeah, I haven't really seen it, because it's really the goal with this book is to get kids to sing this, because songs are sticky and have to be a sing-along, but give illustrations to show how all these pieces of nature are really who we are, as that we are nature, that we are earth, that human is humus, mud, and that we are earth having a human experience. And this is all the proof points to see the power of nature is the power in me. That's where I find my harmony. And so there's the chorus. I want it to be a sticky, like, mantra that they take into their world as they go outside, explore nature, and then look at the contrast of the cultural story. So it's an activist children's book. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I will go search on that. You're right. I don't know if I've seen that, but it is really it's like if the Beatles put Let It Be and made a kid's book out of it.
Yeah. I know there are books, children's books, that have music built into it, and you push a button on a page or something. And I know it can be done. I just have no idea how it actually is done.
Okay. All right.
I know all about printing simple books, normal books, but that's like a specialty thing. I have no idea how to do that, but
Well, then my other book is a traveler's guide, the little book I'm working on now, The 8 Worlds of Wonder. And my goal with this book is to have it be in every hotel room on the planet, to be a guide for visitors to think about the 8 worlds of every destination. So I want it to be a guidebook. So I'm looking at this one to be a sponsored book that visitor places would put grants out to pay for, to get to visitors, because it will inspire stewardship. And then we won't trash so many destinations. That's the goal of this book. So it's specifically targeted to travelers. And I guess the clues that you were, the advice you gave Virginia would hold up, like find conferences, travel writers, you know, people that are, in order to first launch it, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an important thing these days. I know there are a lot of destination spots that are getting ruined because too many people are going there, which is tricky, right? Because you want people to appreciate nature by going there, but you don't want them to destroy it in the process of appreciating it.
And that's why, being in Tahoe, I'm right at the epicenter of where that's happening. We're getting more articles littering the world about how trashed out we are. And that's why I've seen this, and I've seen a solution. We don't want to lock people out. We want to help them be better guests. And by helping them be better guests, they become better citizens of the planet. I see a way bigger picture here. So I'm trying to help them, and I'm teaching these classes this weekend in person for free to just help people build those relationships with the earth so they care.
Yeah. And that's a great mission. And it's, in terms of getting it into hotels and having a sponsored book, there are a lot of books that are sponsored by corporations out there. So they'll fund a book because they believe in it or because they feel like it's good for their business. I wonder if there's a chain like a Marriott or a Hyatt or something that would be interested in sponsoring your book and then putting it in their hotel rooms.
You know, that is a good idea, because you're right. They could use the back cover to put their own, they could market it. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
And I mean, that's going big, right? Looking at one of those chains, it's not like, I mean, I'm sure there are a million authors who would love for Marriott to put their book in all the Marriotts. So it's like tough, but who's to say it isn't doable?
I published a short story called Ship's Log, Writing at Sea through the Maori Writers Conference, and it's on every Holland American Line ship.
There you go. That's
Who
a big
sponsored, did they sponsor that, the cruise ship line?
Yeah, the cruise with the cruise ship line, and with the Maori Writers people that made the arrangement. But it's still there. You go into Holland America, they have a library. You go on a Holland American Line ship, you can go into the library and find Ship's Log, Writing at Sea.
So are you part Maori, Virginia?
I'm sorry?
Are you part Maori? Are you Maori?
No, she's talking about the Maori ship line.
No, the
Oh,
Maui.
okay.
Oh, no, the Maui
Maui.
Writers Conference was the one that did this. They made the
Okay.
arrangements for the book.
Maui as in.
And because we went on a writer's trip on a Holland American Line, and then they had already made arrangements. So maybe you could think of that too, that you could get some interested people on a venue that you want to get books in, and do a package. You're giving them the money for the package for the trip with the people, and then they can publish the book, and then you can market that a million different ways.
Yeah. So yeah, there are
Thank
lots
you.
of opportunities for corporate sponsorship for books, and maybe you don't end up getting a Marriott, but it doesn't hurt to shoot for it and get that experience. And maybe that helps you get it into a bunch of other hotel places with the experience that you learn.
You know what I noticed too, that I have stayed at Raffles Hotel in Singapore. And I just noticed that they're building a hotel in Boston. And they might be looking for some of these kinds of things as they make an entry into the United States. So it's worth a shot.
Rapid Hotel.
I'm sorry?
What's the name of it?
Raffles, F-A-F-F-L-E-S. And it's a very famous hotel. I had the Joseph Conrad Suite as an honor.
Oh,
And
Raffles Hotel.
And it was next to the Rudyard Kipling Suite. So as they're making a new American presence, they might be looking for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it-
because it sets a precedent. It's a legacy, like we're helping our visitors become better guests. I mean, that's, who
and
doesn't want
mixing,
better guests.
it sounds like you also are mixing nature of the continents, and there's a big push right now for, that, and you've got the nature in Singapore and the nature in Boston, and a lot of those different points. And you might even ask somebody there in public relations or someplace what their problems are with people not being good guests, et cetera, in their country and others. And that will help you with your book. I mean, I got off the plane in Singapore, and on the disembarkation card, whatever that is that you fill in before you get off the plane, it is stamped in red, "No drugs under penalty of death." It made me,
Yeah.
it made me wonder if I had an aspirin.
Yeah, I've been there, I've seen that, and they've got a skull and crossbones with it on the back of the official government form. Like, they're trying to make it very clear, if you're bringing weed in, we're going to kill you. It's kind of crazy. Hey, Jackie, I'm putting a link in the chat. This is from a website called Build Book Buzz that I follow. And this is a page on getting corporate sponsors for a book. And there's a lot of good information here about just how to do that, how to get a corporate sponsor or get somebody to sponsor your book. And they go through different methods, like getting somebody to sponsor your whole book or getting somebody to buy in bulk for an event or for a company. But you might find this blog post to be helpful for you.
Oh yeah, this is great. Appreciate this.
And this website has a lot of other good resources as well.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Other questions? So if there aren't more questions, Jackie and Virginia, you're already familiar with our format here, but Andy and Nikki, what we do is we do this Q&A when we start out. And then for those who want to stick around, we have an accountability session where we just hang out here on Zoom. Nobody's talking to each other, but we're just working on our books. It's just a way to make sure that we're getting at least an extra hour of work in on our books per week, because it's easy for weeks to go by and you don't even touch your book. But we do this a little accountability session where we just work together. And if you do have a question, you can unmute and ask the question and I'll respond. I'm here working on one of my book projects, but we just work together for the next hour and everybody's kind of quiet and just working away. But it just helps us to get a little bit more done on the book and have access to ask questions if something comes up for us in that process. So you're welcome to stick around for that or drop off if you need to, if you've got other stuff to get to, but we are here to hold each other accountable if that's helpful for you.
That's lovely. Thank you.
I've got to cut out, but next week I'll be staying. I just had a couple things I've got to run to before the day's end.
Got it. Awesome.
So thank you. It's great. Appreciate it. Great to meet every one of you. And thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy. Good to see you again.
All right. Take care.
Same. I'm sorry. I've got a 2 o'clock and I've got to pick a kid up at camp.
Totally
So I'll
understand.
build this time in for next week.
All right. Sounds great. Great
Thanks.
to see you.
Bye,
Nikki.
everybody.
All right. Nikki, Virginia, you guys going to stick around?
Yeah, I'm going to mute you right now and stick
All
around.
right. I'm going on mute too.
Big organizers. And then you have like a month at the end of them. It's days of the month, like spaces for 30 days. Does anyone know how you work, know how you work that system?
You mean the accordion file cabinet, the files that go?
It's an accordion separate file of its own, and it has 30 days. Brian Tracy talks about this, so I got it. And it has 30 days, and then at the end, it has like a space for the next month or something. And I'm wondering how you organize it.
I don't know. I haven't used one of those.
Okay, no, I'll find out, but I just figured one of you guys might know how to do it. And no, I got a lot of reading done, and it's helping the rest of all this stuff that I have sort of fall into place. You know, you give very, very good basic questions to answer. So I'm glad I read it now before I, like you, I'm sort of rearranging my apartment and I have a lot of files and that's been taking a lot of time. So this is helping. This is helping.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you,
I-
Josh. So it's 10 o'clock every Friday, is that?
Same time every Friday. Yep.
Terrific. And hang in there in that Phoenix weather. I've been hearing about it on the news. Wicked.
Oh,
Wicked.
you're in
is.
Phoenix?
Yeah, it is crazy. It was 119 yesterday.
Wow.
How do you go outside? You don't.
You don't. I mean, I'm looking at it. It looks beautiful, but I've got the air conditioning running inside, which fingers crossed that air conditioning keeps working. But I mean, I step outside and it's like opening your oven and it just hits you and you're like, wow, this is
Yeah. You
And you
could
never-
live at
You never go out
119.
without so you never go out without a bottle of water? You know,
yeah.
if you believe, you know, I remember I had a friend in Texas who handed me water when we were going out. And she said, you can't leave the house around here without a couple of bottles of water. In case the car stops, you need a couple more in the car.
Yeah, we carry around a whole Costco case of water in the trunk of our car. It's
But
warm
it's
water,
less
but it's
melt.
water.
God, the plastic would melt on your water. You could. So do
Yeah.
you have solar on your roof to run your energy, or if the grid goes down, you're screwed?
We don't. It's something that we've looked into, but we just haven't pulled the trigger. I've got a neighbor across the street who's a friend who runs a solar company. He told me to wait 2 years because there are all these advancements coming out and I'll be better off if I wait a little bit. But yeah, we've looked into it and I mean, if there's any place that you would think solar would do well, it seems like it's here. We've had something like 20 days now where it's been over 110 degrees in a row every single day.
Like, what about at night?
At night, it gets down to about 90 degrees.
What?
So it's funny because if you look at the temperature at 5 a.m., it's still warmer than at 6 a.m. So 6 a.m. is like the low point, and it will get down to like 90 at 6 a.m. But at 5 a.m., it's still like 92 or something.
Do you go out at all? I mean, do you socialize and go out or?
I mean, we
can't.
drive places and I actually go running. So I get up at 5, I go running and I have my outfit. I've got a ton of liquids. I know where the gas station is so I can cool down and get more ice and refill. And it's not too bad because it's only 100 degrees by the time I get home. But it's a whole interesting experience.
Wow. How do the kids handle it?
They stay inside. They do stuff inside with their friends. We have a swimming pool, but it's actually pretty warm at this point. There's no cooler attached to the pool. That's what we need is a pool cooler. So they go swim, but the water, it's kind of tepid. It's kind of warm.
Oh,
Doesn't really
God.
refresh you very much
It
at this
sounds
point.
awful.
It's not that bad once you're here. I mean, it's bad, but you just don't notice it because you just stay inside. It's like living in northern Idaho in the winter. You just don't go outside.
Well, I don't know. I went outside. We had a pretty brutal winter, but yeah, northern Idaho. Yeah, I wouldn't go outside.
Yeah.
God, I don't even know, but I bet it's amazing in the winter.
Winters are great. I mean, it's like California, Southern California in the winter.
Yeah.
And really, it's only 2 months that it gets bad. So, I mean, the other 10 months of the year, it's pretty nice.
Wow. All right. Well, you're right. I hope your air conditioning doesn't break.
Yeah, and I hope you have some fans around in case it does, some backup
Go
fans.
grid. Go grid.
Fans aren't enough. I mean, if your AC goes, like you have to leave the house.
Where do you go? Do you go to stores? Do they have cooling tents? And
I don't know what people do. It hasn't happened to us yet, but it happens to people. And I mean, when that happens, you make an emergency call to the air conditioner repair guy and you pay whatever they tell you to pay. Because it's not just, I mean, it's everything
It's
in your
life.
house.
It's life. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your fridge full of food. You've got and your fridge will overheat if your AC goes out because your house is going to get up to 120 degrees inside your house really quickly if your AC
Wow.
goes out.
Wow.
I just can't. Oh my gosh, you are on an abyss there.
Yeah, it's like another planet in some ways. It's like being on Venus or something.
Yeah, Florida was that way too when I was in Naples and during the summer. But fortunately, I lived very near the beach and I used to, that used to help a lot. But if you were anywhere near the cement, sidewalks.
God.
And you had the humidity there. We don't have the humidity here. I mean, it's a dry heat, but it's like an oven. You
It's
walk
an
out.
oven.
if I
No,
wa-
120 is an oven. I cook yams at 120. So
Yeah, I mean, you walk outside and it hits you.
no
You think,
way.
oh, it's hot, but then you walk outside and you're like, oh my goodness, this is so hot.
It's oppressive. I know. I've been like freaking out when we get close to 80 here, and I can't imagine. That's 20 to 40 degrees higher.
Well,
Yeah.
they say
Right.
oh, no, go ahead. They say that this has been everywhere, the hottest summer in history, everywhere.
Yeah, but
No-
I have a cold lake that's 68 degrees, 65. It's not
Oh,
that
that's-
hot here. I mean, and we don't have air conditioning in Tahoe. There's no air conditioning here. It's not hot. Not like that. I mean, it's hot for me. 80's hot, but
That lake sounds really nice. If I had a 60-degree lake outside right now, I'd go dive in it for sure.
come on over. I got a 2-bedroom house that's sitting there empty around the corner. So
Uh,
want to get a quick trip, Reno to Phoenix, pretty cheap.
yeah, that sounds nice.
I got paddle boards, kayaks down at the beach. I used to be a host, Airbnb host for 10 years. So I've got like 8 mountain bikes and
Oh, wow.
tons of
You
stuff.
really are set up to have
I'm
guests.
set up to host. That's what all my books are about, is helping visitors. It's my whole thing now. Fashion designer turns destination host. Who knew? All right. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Virginia. Have a great week.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye now. Stay cool.